Adequate notice of this meeting has been provided to the Co-Star, the official newspaper of the Borough of Belmar, and the Asbury Park Press on December 13, 2023, and notice of this meeting was posted on the bulletin board of the municipal building. Take roll call. Councilman McKinney?
Here.
Mayor Buckafusco?
Here.
Councilman Rondinero?
Here.
And Councilwoman Donovan and Councilman Levis are absent.
Okay, please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Please remain standing for a moment of silence for our armed forces, our troops, and first responders and their families. Thank you. Okay, if you're following along on the agenda, we're going to just hold off on the proclamations so we can get right into the workshop. Tonight, we're going to have an update on our redevelopment and affordable housing situation here in Belmar. We're fortunate to have our two attorneys, one there, Leslie London and Joseph Bauman, and they're going to give us all an update on what's been happening and what the law is and what we can expect in the future. So I'm going to turn it over to them, and I think we're going to come down so that we can see the power.
So while the mayor and council are coming down, I'm Joe Bauman with McManaman, Scotland and Bauman. Leslie London's my partner. And we've been leading the effort on behalf of you and the governing body with input from the mayor, the council, and the PA in navigating our way through our affordable housing obligations. So my partner Leslie, we've been partners for 35 years. We've been working together for a long time. She's the real expert on the affordable housing. We're all more on the redevelopment side, so we're sort of a tag team, for lack of a better word. Leslie really is handling the litigation, dealing with the interveners, dealing with the special master, dealing with the judge. She has all the expertise on the existing law, the current law, and working us through the process. My role has been primarily on the negotiating with the interveners, which we won't hear a lot about tonight. That's to come. The purpose of this meeting was the mayor and the council and the VA asked us to spend a little time educating the public about where we are in this process and what will have to come in the future, so that we can all understand where we sit vis-a-vis the law, our responsibilities and our obligations. So Leslie's going to take you through it. I'm going to be her Vanna White, and I'm going to make sure we move the slides along. But this is really Leslie's show tonight, and we're also available for questions. We want to share with you as much as we can, keeping in mind that we are still limited by certain requirements, certain need to become confidential. And what I mean by that is, through this process, it's a negotiation. The goal is to come to a settlement. It's not the only way this can turn out. It can turn into a lawsuit with one of our interveners or all of our interveners. But the goal, the preferred course, is to reach a settlement that is in the interest of the borough from our perspective, and then brings the other side to the table. Because that process inevitably involves us negotiating with multiple interveners, as you'll hear. We have multiple other parties we're dealing with in very different projects. It's not in the borough's interest for any one of those individuals to have insight into our negotiations with the others. It's in our collective interest to keep them in the dark with one another. So the confidential analysis here is we're not trying to keep it from the public. It's the opposite. We're trying to keep it from the other people that we're negotiating to not be aware of our negotiations. We may agree with one intervener or developer, something that we may not agree with another intervener. So every one of those negotiations are separate, and it is not in the interest of the governing body, of the borough and the public, for interveners to be aware of what we're doing. So primarily our need to be confidential and have our confidential meetings with the governing body. There'll be plenty of disclosure at the appropriate time with the public. You'll have time to hear what we're doing and where we're going before there's votes or official actions. But for the moment, we have to leave a lot of this out of the public view. And again, it's to protect the public not necessarily keep it from you, we should just no other way. Leslie's gonna share with you again the law, our obligations, where we are through the process, and give you a little insight into the law that just got adopted a couple months ago, which is gonna dictate how we have to go move forward. So we're hoping this will be a significant educational process. That's why we're happy to answer questions. There may be questions you'll ask for, we'll say we can't tell you the answer to. But by and large, we're gonna try and tell you everything we can that we think will impede our ability to do the best job we can on behalf of the governing body and on behalf of the town and ultimately on behalf of you together. So, Leslie?
Good evening, Mayor, council members, and members of the public. What I hope to do this evening is to give you a overall summary, if I can do that. It's a very long process going back many years, but a good summary of affordable housing, how we got here, why are we here, what are we doing, what has to be done, and then bring you up to date as to the legislation that Joe mentioned that was just passed a couple weeks ago, signed by the governor, which also will have an impact on the borough. Excuse me. So, historically, we go to 1975, which started the whole Mount Laurel doctrine. It was a case in New Jersey Supreme Court involving Mount Laurel, a suit that had been filed against them, claiming that they were not providing adequate housing for poor, low-income, and moderate households. That case culminated in a decision by the court where the court determined that municipalities in New Jersey have a constitutional obligation to provide their fair share of housing in the region. And it became it's a mandatory constitutional obligation. So it's not something you cannot do. It's mandatory by court law. Municipalities were broken into regions. Belmar is in Region 4, which includes Mercer, Monmouth, and Ocean counties. So when you look at income levels, it's not just based on incomes in Belmar, it's based on it's based on income for municipalities in those other towns. So you say, what is affordable housing? That's the $100 question. And essentially it's housing with a sales price or rent that falls within the means of very low, moderate, and income household levels. It's not Section 8 housing, it's actually working incomes. People coming out of college, teachers, firemen, and as you see from, and I don't know if you can see this from here, but this chart indicates the income levels. Eligibility for this housing is determined by gross annual household income. So to qualify for this housing for moderate, it can't be more than 80% of the median income. For low income, 50%, and for very low, 30%. As an example, a household of 4 people. To be considered moderate, to be able to qualify for the housing, you have to have an annual gross income of $104,043. Low income would be $65,027, and very low would be $39,016. So as you can see, there's an income requirement. So people moving into this housing have to have an income. So back several years ago, COA, the Council on Affordable Housing, was established to promulgate rules to determine the municipality's affordable housing obligation and to oversee the efforts to satisfy those obligations. Municipalities were required to file what's called a housing element and fair share plan, which outlines the municipality's plan on how they're going to achieve their housing, what projects are going to be included, timeframes for building those projects. It lays the groundwork for your plan. And once that plan was submitted to COA at the time and was approved, municipalities received what's called substantive certification. which gave protection to the municipality from what I will call later builder remedy lawsuits. So again, this process has been around for many, many years. The first round covered 1987 to 1993. Second round covered 1993 to 1999. And then preparing for the third round was a problem because lawsuits started happening, challenging the rules. So there was a gap period of 1999 through 2015, which is called the gap period. And the third round started July 1st, 2015, and is still in place right now through June 30th of next year. So as I mentioned, the gap period involved litigation. Fair Share Housing Center litigated, challenged the regulations that were being promulgated or tried to be promulgated by COA. It culminated in a decision by the New Jersey Supreme Court on March 10th, 2015, in the decision what has been called as Mount Laurel 4. And the court held at that time that the third round rules that were being proposed were non-compliant. The court went even further to say, COA, you haven't been doing your job. We're removing you from the process. And they gave the process to the courts to deal with. And courts were set up, county vicinges were set up, affordable housing judges were appointed, and municipalities were given an opportunity up until July 8th of 2015 to voluntarily file what's called a declaratory judgment action with the Supreme Court. And in that process, the municipality would be asking the court to look at its housing plan and to determine if they were in compliance, and if so, to issue a declaration of compliance and repose. Now, everyone did not run to the courts by July 8th. Many did not come at all. Some came 2 years later, 3 years later. But at this present time, there's at least, I think, 350 settlements of municipalities that have filed with the court and have entered into settlements with Fair Share Housing Center. And I'll talk about why it's important to file these DJ actions. So the DJ action, the parties involved, you have your Mount Laurel judge, you have the municipality. The municipality is represented by a lawyer and a planner, and you have also a consultant to assist in the matter. You have a special master who is generally not an attorney. It's usually a planner, and our special master who's handling our case will be here this evening. He's coming from North Jersey. But it's an expert planner that's been appointed by the court to act as a mediator between the municipality, Fair Share Housing Center, and any interveners. Fair Share Housing Center, you've probably heard a lot about, read about. They are the advocate, nonprofit advocate that is looking and promoting affordable housing. And that's their job, is all they do. They look around to see who has complied and who has not. Interveners can be anyone. They could be a builder, developer, landowner, or any other interested party. Now, the intervener typically is someone that will go to the court and ask to be part of the case, and they will say to the judge, I want to be part of this case because the municipality has failed to do what it's supposed to do. They have not met their obligation to create housing. So I want to be part of that case. And by the way, I have some property here that I'd like to build on to help the municipality meet its needs. I would say 9.9% of the time, the court will allow an entity to get involved as an intervener. Once the DJ action is filed, the municipality receives what's called temporary immunity. It protects the municipality from some other person coming in, a developer, someone who's a landowner, filing what's called a builder remedy lawsuit against the municipality. And again, and under that scenario, If a municipality has not filed a DJ action, the developer goes to court. They don't come to the municipality. They go directly to the court and say to the judge, this municipality has failed its obligation. I have some property I want to build. I want to build it at this density. And the builder in that situation is in the driver's seat because they don't go directly to the municipality. They're going to the court and asking the court to look at their plan. So the disadvantage of not filing a DJ action is that you leave yourself open to that builder, developer, going into the court and having the judge decide what is good for the municipality, not the municipality. And when a builder does the builder remedy, they are obligated to put in at least 20% set aside for housing. The set aside is interesting because for every affordable unit, you have to build 4 market units at least. So if your obligation is high, that's a lot of housing. So you want to be in the driver's seat as the municipality, so you control what projects get in, what they look like, rather than the court or the builder telling you what is being done. The other situation, besides builders filing actions, if you fail to do anything, their share has a right to come in and also sue the municipality. And you don't want to leave yourself open for that to happen too. And it will happen. You know, you have some municipalities that take the position, well, I don't care, I'll just wait for somebody to sue me, I'll wait for fair share to come. Eventually they will come knocking at the door. They have people that look at the municipalities, they see what's going on. If they see development going on and they see that there's no affordable housing as part of that development, they will come in and they will go to court and commence the action. And again, the municipality now is at a disadvantage because you're not leading the way. You're not driving the bus anymore. You have fair share driving the bus. And with the builder remedy, you have the builder driving the bus. So we go to how is a municipality's housing obligation determined? It took a long time. There was a case in Mercer County back in 2018 before Judge Jacobson. I believe it was maybe 2 or 3 months of a trial and competing methodologies, what should be used, and eventually what's called the Jacobson methodology came out of that case, which determined what a municipality's numbers will be. And again, the numbers are based on a region, not a particular municipality. So it brings us to where we are today. The borough decided to file the DJ action, not wait around to be sued by the builders, not wait around to be sued by fair share, and we got in time before the builders got to court first. So we filed the DJ action March 2nd, 2023, last year. We are currently still before Judge Linda Grosso-Jones, who's a pretty good judge. Frank Banish is our special master, and we have 4 interveners in the case. The interveners are Rapetti, Russo Development, 75 Rainey LLC or Sackman, Mark Build Properties, 613 10th Avenue. Now each of these developers came into court, came to the judge and said, I have a project. I know the municipality has an obligation. I can help them meet that number. And Judge Grosso-Jones likes to tell stories. I think she has grandchildren, but she equated this to Shrek and the donkey and the developers being the donkey saying, look at me, I have a project. So the judge likes to tell these little stories. We also have a recent request for another intervener. We haven't responded yet on that, but 7th Avenue Associates. The longer the borough has its action open, the longer it creates an opportunity for someone else to come in to the court and say, hey judge, I have a property here, I want to build. Coming to some finality with the process in the court will close the case, will give the municipality a judgment of compliance and immunity from anyone else filing a lawsuit against the borough. That is why it's critical to move this forward as quickly as possible. I have a case management conference with the judge on Friday. The judge has asked that I give her an update on where is the borough. If we are not far enough along, the judge wants to have the mayor, council person come in personally to the judge and sit around, and she will help make some decisions, but she said you don't want me to do that. You want to be in the driver's seat. So again, how is the borough addressing its obligation? The COA rules, which are still in process, or still here, provide various mechanisms to reach your number. We don't have a big trust fund and other mechanisms that some municipalities have that could help you do other things, so we're relying on inclusionary projects. However, the first thing that we decided to do is to try to bring down the number. All the numbers were very high because we had that gap period where nothing was done, plus your third round obligation numbers. I think they were like maybe 145 in total, and that's just affordable units. So if you have 145 affordable, remember I gave you the math, 4 markets for every affordable, that's a lot of housing. So you look to see how can I bring that number down. The rules allow you to do what's called the vacant land adjustment. And this is for municipalities that don't have a lot of vacant land. You can look at what you have or don't have and come up with what's called a realistic development potential. So you can bring that number down by arguing we don't have any vacant land, and so our numbers should be lower. But if you have projects or buildings that could be redeveloped, that's also looked at as being vacant or being available. So your planner, your affordable housing planner, is working now on the vacant land adjustment to come up with the realistic development potential number. She's almost there. We've been having several meetings with Fair Share and the court master to bring some agreement what that number should be and how we need it. But it is significantly lower than what it was based on Jacob's number. So where we are right now, as I mentioned, I have a case management conference on Friday. Next week, the judge has directed people to come in to see her in the event I don't give her good news on Friday. So we need to finalize the vacant land adjustment and the RDP, which we're working on with the planner and Fair Share. We have to we should enter into a settlement agreement with Fair Share on the interveners. Doing so will stop the process, give us immunity, and be able to close the book on this third round. So part of the process, the borough has to complete a housing element and Fair Share plan, and spending plan. These are things that your planner is working on. We will have what's called a fairness hearing, where if we are in agreement, it's just pro forma going through with the judge outlining what our plan is and how we plan to meet our obligations. And there'll be a requirement that the municipality adopt various ordinances to deal with zoning issues. That's all part of the package. And once all of that is done, the court will issue final approval, third round certification, and you will have immunity. And even though it's coming late, if it's here by the summer, you have a year of immunity until next year, 2025, of no one else coming to knock on your door and demand that housing be built. You will be in control. And I just noticed this date is wrong here for April 10th. That hasn't even happened yet. I'm a little above my time. But it was just recent that the legislation was passed. think I did this last night, so that's probably.
Yeah. It was, in Leslie's defense, I said, could you throw together a quick summary last night at around 7 o'clock?
I was up around 1 o'clock doing this.
So there you go. But the rest is,
Okay, so, but, A4 Senate Bill 50 was passed recently. It is now Public Law 2024, Chapter 2. The main thing that this new legislation, and this is for the fourth round. The fourth round begins July 1st, 2025, and goes through 2035. The main thing that the new legislation does, it abolishes COA. COA is gone. It establishes a new process in various parties. DCA is involved more now. And it changes the methodology for calculating your obligation for the fourth round. And it takes the Jacobson's methodology and does other formulas with it. It's a very long process, and I didn't want to bore you with that tonight. But there are some criticisms about it. Some people who have looked at it believe that it will result in higher numbers for the municipality, but you will still have an opportunity to do the vacant land, and if you have your plan in place already and your ordinance is adopted, it makes it easier going forward. The new legislation sets forth very stringent timelines for action. I'm going to go through a couple of those, and it imposes consequences for failure to meet those timelines. I put this last item in bold here because if your third round obligations are not completed by the time the fourth round is set to happen and move forward, that's the first thing you have to do. So you're going to have your third round numbers on top of your fourth round numbers, and it's just going to be a very bad situation. And you'll have more developers and more people knocking at your door to do things. So the timeline, just a couple of highlights. By October 24, 2024, DCA has to calculate the numbers, which is not that far off. And then I'm going to skip down to January 31st, 2025, is when the municipality has to determine or conclude what its numbers are and adopt a resolution adopting those numbers. So you will have from October, when those numbers come out from the DCA, through the end of this year, December, to determine your numbers and to file them with DCA. So it's not a lot of time. So if you are still if you are still dealing with your third round, your mind is in the third round, you're not going to have time to start working on the fourth round and planning. You need to start planning. What are you going to do for the fourth round? This new legislation provides a lot of opportunity for challenge, and it's very short time frames for challenge. As I mentioned, you have to adopt by January 31st. February 28th, interested parties, that's their deadline to challenge your numbers. And there's more process back and forth. You go to dispute resolution. But your numbers are presumed to be okay. And as long as you can justify it, someone challenging has to come up with their own numbers and show why those numbers are the correct numbers. So it's a lot of work for the municipality to do and your planner. But that's why it's important to start planning as soon as you can. So essentially, I'll stop there. But as you can see, there's a lot of actions to be taken from next year through the end of 2025 for the fourth round. Importantly, we need to resolve round 3 first, but keep the borough in the driver's seat, and then we can start dealing with the fourth round.
So, Mayor, we open up the questions?
Yeah, you can open it up, yeah.
Anyone have any questions? I don't know.
Why don't you come up to the mic?
I have a quick question.
Vicki Renner, 4th Avenue. Years ago, I was on the planning board and the zoning board. They were combined, they were separate. But going back, what happened to, like, Belmar is an established community, okay? We're have X amount of square feet, there's X amount of housing, and yes, we tend to go towards more single-family housing when things are taken down or rebuilt. So there was an agreement with, I think it was Howell at the time, and many other towns, that we sold our obligation to Howell because they have land. You sell it to places that have room to come up with these things to fit in these excessive amount of numbers that you're coming up with 1-to-4 ratio for everyone that you need. So what happened to that?
That was invalidated.
So you
Or they called RCA's.
yeah.
They were eliminated in its entirety, and new legislation makes clear that RCA's are gone. Many municipalities took advantage of it and paid money to other municipalities that, as you say, had land or wanted housing. And Fair Share fought that, saying that's not fair, that you can pay off. Every municipality needs to do something. So by law now, you can't do RCA's.
Okay, so that brings us back to being an established community, Spring Lake, Avalon, any place that's pretty well developed and doesn't have a lot of vacant land to begin with. How does a community like ours, do we then curb our building in the future to lean towards more single-family housing? Because that would pretty much delineate things of adding what you're talking about to develop, because otherwise if you have to say you have 20 or the numbers, whatever you said, 100 before, or whatever it was.
145.
Okay, 145 times, it's over 600 just units in a small town, that our infrastructure can't hold what we have right now. And so you're gonna add all these things. So to bring it down, if you stick with single-family housing in our future, how does the state expect this town to do that?
This legislation does not contemplate single-family housing. They are looking at rentals or townhouses for sale, but single-family would not be part of this. What Fair Share would do, if there's vacant land, they would not approve, and the court would not approve building a single-family home. They would be arguing that you should be building a townhouse or some other development. And you will have a developer come in and say to the court, I can build a rental, I can build townhouses. So that,
but you were talking about vacant land, which we don't really have.
right, and that's why we do the vacant
So
land
is vacant
adjustment.
land considered if someone buys, 2 or 3 properties, takes it down, and then you have 3 lots, and then the state says, well, now you'll have 3 lots, so you should put up 6 condos instead of 3 houses, or I don't understand. If you don't have the land to begin with, where are you supposed to get it from?
There are some vacant parcels that are included on the list. They also look for underutilized properties that may be vacant, and they will consider those to be part of the vacant land analysis.
And is there a size on those lots? Like what you're talking about, like a
So
minimum?
let me help you out a little. So in your downtown, our 4 interveners have properties that they can put multifamily projects on. And that's what they're arguing, right? They're saying that we described to you the Mark built or those properties and have a hotel on one of them. You can knock that hotel down and put a multifamily project. So there is land in the borough where developers are prepared to remove what's there and build multifamily. And they're going to Fair Share in the courts and saying, we don't care what the zoning says. We can take that land and build an apartment complex on it. That's how it's happening. So in your example, for example, without the protections, someone could knock down 3 homes, and you describe that's zoned for single family, and get the court to agree that you have an obligation you're not meeting, and I can put now on those 3 single family homes, 6 townhouses.
Except for the town, didn't you go ahead and create an ordinance not too long ago because of what was done on 12th Avenue, that you could not do cluster of building?
No, wait, I think what you're not, the part you're not understanding is at some level, you lose control of your zoning. Whatever the town may have passed, doesn't matter. If the court concludes that you have an obligation you're omitting, it'll set aside your zoning as they are. So in these projects that we're talking about, the zoning may be this size, but the court is gonna allow them to do different than your zoning. You can't protect yourself
I
from having
understand
your zoning.
they're overriding us, so you're saying we have our laws are gonna be overridden by the state.
Well, we're trying to protect your laws by doing things like negotiating with developers to something we could live with, and then getting immunity from lawsuits going forward. So we're trying to we're gonna.
So, but what you're referring to, are there large-scale projects in this conversation right now? Is that what you're talking about
There's some
right
that
now?
you were all well aware of. I think you were, I can't get, but I think everyone's well aware of what Rapetti was proposing, right? That was a public proposal that was made to you. So you know what they want to build today. What you don't know is what we're trying to get them to build instead. And that's which is less. Okay, so our job, those developers are pushing for bigger projects on those projects that they control or own. And our job is to bring that into something that we could live with.
Correct,
As
that's
opposed
what I
to-
brought up. If that was zoned single family, then
It wouldn't have mattered.
it wouldn't matter?
It wouldn't have mattered. It wouldn't have helped you. Because we don't have enough, you have an obligation at some level. So our other job is to get your obligation lower. The number that Leslie gave you, the big number, our job is to try and get that to be lower by saying we don't have a lot of vacant land, but they're gonna point to properties where, well, there's a single shop on this piece of property. It could have have an apartment building on it. That's the way they're thinking about
Okay,
vacant
that's all
land.
fine and good, but then who is responsible? If the state wants to be so bad about this and, they have rules, who's paying for the infrastructure?
So the court's been clear, backing up, that the infrastructure requirements, the school requirements are not a factor in whether or not, you can't go to the court and say, we don't have room for those children, or we don't have the infrastructure to support them.
I'm not talking about the children in the school. I'm talking about flooding on our streets on a good day that it rains here, you're flooding.
As long as they're complying with DEP rules and regulations, there's nothing we can do, it's not that way. It's part of the challenge.
I understand it, I just think I respect your presentation. I just think we're missing something, because I just can't see our neighboring towns, maybe they haven't gone also, like you're saying, we're jumping ahead by going forward and volunteering to get behind, so we're not behind the 8 ball, okay? But has Spring Lake, has Seagirt, has Avalon, Bradley Beach, have we contacted them to see that they've all also gone forward to meet these requirements? Because
Yes.
we're all kind of in the same boat.
Well, everyone is, and as I mentioned, there's at least 350 municipalities in New Jersey that have already settled with fair share. And again, this goes back to 2015 when it first started. So you have towns that went in 2015.
Right, so it's almost 10 years later, and no one's even jumped up because if the state's so behind, actually even catching up with people who haven't
And they have been catching up with other towns.
Yeah,
Fair share.
And some of those towns, I think, are actually in the process that you mentioned. I don't know, we're not familiar with all of them, that some ones you mentioned are in process.
Yes.
Thank you.
Linda Sharkus, 4th Avenue. I don't want this point that Ms. Renner brought up about infrastructure to go unnoticed.
Yeah.
Because if this program is not going to assist, you're gonna put the people who are living here out of their homes for the increase in taxes that will be required to redo water, sewer, the roads. If we may have had a nice bumpy ride getting here, I mean, we're really in bad shape. And the plan for redoing the roads hasn't been established, and, our water and sewer lines are undersized. So I would hope, as you're walking down this path on affordable housing, there's somewhere along the line, we address how we solve our problem without having the residents of Belmar lose their homes because they're unaffordable.
Yeah. So make sure I just want to make sure, we don't represent the state of New Jersey. We didn't write these laws. We're on, it may not sound like it, but we're on your team trying to maneuver your way through it. And unfortunately, the courts have consistently said, they don't care about that impact on the tax rate.
But you're working with the developers.
No, they're our adversary,
Yes,
and we're
but
fighting. with them.
negotiating with them on
Yeah.
things.
That's our,
And this is really important to the, because these discussions were underway with these developers prior to getting to this stage. So that's really sad that we lost the opportunity to have road, sewer lines replaced.
yeah, I'm not gonna
Water
comment on what
lines.
happened before we got here. with the
I know, but
prohibition.
we have to, because it's our
No,
reality.
no, but yeah, 100%.
So, thank you.
You agree.
Good evening. Jay McDermott, 515 6th Avenue. Full disclosure, I'm the chair of the planning board, so I just wanted to ask a few questions. I know you said we're all familiar with all the properties. Can we go back through that? Because I just wanted to know what the unit count they were looking for initially.
I'm not gonna be able to give you that information, but we can go through the process.
Okay.
The only thing
Can
I
you
don't.
pull the list up or something so we can look at it?
Oh, I'm sorry, yeah, I'm in charge of that.
Yeah.
All right. Give me 30 seconds.
And I think there's a fifth one that was added, right? You said that
Well,
was
so
7th Avenue?
there's 4 interveners.
And
A fifth one
interview.
filed, yes, sir.
Yeah, I'll look at that. The fifth one, 7th Avenue Associates, their attorney reached out to the borough asking to allow them into the case. Otherwise, they will be filing directly with the court and ask the court to allow them to get into the.
By the way, our position is no, they can't get in the case.
Okay, so you're gonna try to push that off? Okay,
But ultimately, it's the judge's decision,
they'll make that decision.
yes.
Do we know where that property is beyond the legal name?
I don't know if anyone knows.
I know. It's west of Main on 7th.
I don't know.
Okay.
We just got it in the office here. Our attorneys.
So it's Rapetti Russo Development, 75 Green LLC Sacman, Markville Properties LLC, and 613 10th Avenue LLC.
So the Petty property is the hotel.
Yeah. Well, that was like 240 plus or minus.
That one I know is public. If the other ones, I don't know what was public.
Sacman was about 54 units.
Okay,
Markville was about 100 units.
that one I'm not sure.
And then,
I have those numbers, but I don't know what was public.
I just know from having looked at these over the past.
Yeah.
And then I think the eye doctor, Einhorn, is like 14, 12 units, something like that. So obviously you're trying to negotiate those numbers down while meeting the affordable obligation, correct? That's where you're at.
Right, we're trying to keep the numbers as low as possible. We have a number that is our obligation number.
Which is 20%.
Well, we have the number, the realistic development potential number, which is, as I mentioned, that's a number less than the 145 that was started.
Right.
So whatever that number is.
After the big land adjustment, it'll
Right.
be down to whatever.
And then we have to meet.
So then you're negotiating that number with developers to see who can meet that obligation, how you can meet.
No, so we have, we want, whatever the obligation for each property is, to be satisfied by that property. No more, no less. So if your property is gonna create an obligation of 5, we want you to solve 5. Separately,
But it can't be 5 with one property. We don't necessarily need to give 1 across 5 properties.
well, first with the interviewers, our goal is to have each property satisfy its property's obligation. For the balance of the borough, there will be an obligation that we cannot satisfy on those properties. That'll be whatever is left, what they.
So that's beyond, so this.
That's part of our
settlement-
negotiation with the fair share.
But is it part of the 145, those properties? Less than.
Yes,
Ultimately,
yes, yes.
will be
So my
part of
point is, if it ends up being 90, let's play out numbers, right? You could try to meet that obligation with 1 or 2 of the properties, maybe 3 properties, not necessarily all 5 properties or 4
No,
properties. It has to be spread across all of them.
the judge is gonna expect every one of those to pay.
Okay. So we will have all 4 of those developments built in some form or fashion, just so we're clear.
Yes.
Okay. So then, after, let's say, it gets to a settlement, you went through the timeline, it gets to the court settles. Obviously, I'm looking at it saying, okay, feel like this is late to the game because now we're finding out all this as the public. Will the
Well, that's
public
not
have an
fair. That's not
opportunity?
fair.
Was that?
That's not fair. This conversation is late to the game. not fair. I had this whole conversation with the governing body and the public 4 months ago when we first filed the DG action. We had this entire discussion,
So we knew about all 4 of these properties?
Well, that happens as they can, right?
Okay, so we didn't know about all of
I
them?
just don't want you to pretend or suggest that we haven't been as forthright as we can. We really work really hard at that. That's the only reason I take umbrage. But
Well,
okay, fair.
I'll let the public decide.
Sure.
It's not for me to say.
Fair.
So I guess the question is, from the planning board perspective, will these properties after court settlement come to the planning board?
Yes.
So the public has an opportunity to look at that?
More than that.
And then I guess the question is, even if that's the case, if it's a settlement, there's probably not a lot that the planning board can do as it relates to the application, because really, this settlement's been made in terms of number of units, size, all that. Maybe we're gonna be able to address the facade or something like that, but really, the obligation will be met in that settlement, is that?
So the settlement's gonna be complicated. It's gonna take several meetings to
Right.
implement, right? It's not, it'll be a settlement, and then we're gonna have a list of stuff we have to do.
Right.
Any one of those could go off the rails and blow up the settlement. For example, we may have to change the zoning. We may have to adopt an amendment to the redevelopment plan. That process, arguably, the governing body, with each vote, could change their mind and blow up the settlement, and we're back to where we're going. So,
Which is fine, there's a lot of, it's a complicated
And
process
eventually-
and a lot of steps.
and
Does it get to the planning board?
it will get to full site plan application, full blown.
But short of, the adjustments we can make as a planning board will be somewhat limited.
I would say they're similar to what you can do now, because they will show up in as of right application.
I can't change unit count.
No, but you couldn't for any other,
Oh, I can.
for an as of right application? No, you can't,
So all these will be as of right now.
because we're gonna have to change the zoning.
All right. So they'll
These
be
are not
as of right,
variants.
that's the difference.
Right, so.
Because everyone else they would be coming in for a variance
Anyone, if someone
today.
came in tomorrow with a compliant plan.
I understand that, but they're not necessarily in that place before the lawsuit. They were not as of right.
Well, I mean,
I can tell you, they got rejected. I rejected one of them on my board, they're not as of right. So
And
they
that's why
weren't before this.
Right, but that's why they came into the litigation, because the litigation hasn't been resolved yet. So they saw an opportunity
Yeah,
to circumvent.
but you realize they could have filed a builder's remedy lawsuit and gotten what they wanted, whether it was or not.
they could have, but a lot of people didn't. As of 2015, to Vicky's point, not a lot of
I
other
can assure
towns
you
are
that if they
experiencing.
hadn't, and you tried to prove that with no affordable housing, fair share would have sued you instead.
Probably would have jumped in. Okay, so
You're
they
getting
will
this.
come before the planning board, that was my rule.
Yeah.
Okay,
And they were full-blown site plan application. Yeah.
okay, thank you.
I have a question.
Mary Beth Mack here, Sixth Avenue. Everything that we have to build, we can't have single-family homes. It all has to be multiple dwellings. Is this what it's coming down to in Belmar?
I mean.
We've had it with multiple buildings,
Will be multiple.
everything.
All the four interveners are proposing multiple.
And any other thing,
When you say multiple,
property
you meant
or
multifamily
things that want to, they have to be multiple families.
I'm sorry.
Everything that gets built has to be multiple families.
Everything's, so, economically, it's hard for someone to build an affordable housing home. You can't afford it.
Now, all of this development that has happened in Belmar, do they all have affordable housing?
Before today?
Yeah.
Oh, no.
Well, why aren't they?
Well, because prior,
We've always had a quota for affordable
in the
housing.
past, the governing body didn't require it.
There's 12 for the next cycle.
Yeah, there's 12, but we, in the past, I think people were allowed to build without affordable housing.
What is the sense of having a planning board zoning rules when the state just throws them out and says,
So the state's view
you can't do that?
is not Joe Bauman's view or Leslie Londer's view. The state's view is you have a constitutional obligation to provide affordable housing. And if you won't do that, then we're gonna override your zoning, because we think you have a constitutional obligation bigger than your zoning. That's the way the Supreme Court thinks. Again, not our view. The Supreme Court is saying to you, town, your zoning is less important than your constitutional obligation to provide affordable housing in New Jersey, driven by the Constitution of New Jersey.
That's destroying Belmar. I'm sorry, it is.
And I'm not advocating for it.
And
I'm
it's
just trying to get
crazy.
you through from here to the other end, without having,
But everything that's going up is high rises. The traffic, everything else
They're
is
taller buildings.
ridiculous. And this is not what we want our town to be.
I think you have to take it up with the legislature. And
Well, is anyone here fighting the legislature?
fighting it. No, they passed the law.
Well,
I mean,
dispute
that's not,
that?
that's, you know,
Can we
fighting,
dispute
you're
it?
elected.
No, seriously. Can we?
Yeah, we're in a quarter of an hour fighting it.
Yeah, but we're fighting for lower quotas, not just throw away the whole thing.
That fight was fought and lost.
Can't be too.
And the fourth round was just approved by the legislature, the Senate and the Assembly approved both a package of bills going into the fourth round. They didn't make any changes. I mean, well, they made changes, but they didn't take away the constitutional obligation.
Well, then what is the point of having a zoning and planning board in our town?
Honestly, the only solution I think is you would have to put a referendum, have to amend the New Jersey Constitution.
Okay.
You want to change the Constitution?
I think the question though was, if I own a home in Belmar and I want to sell it, and somebody buys it, there's no obligation on me to have affordable housing. I think that's what.
No.
I mean, everyone who owns a single-family resident can sell it
Sure.
and have another, or if they have a lot, they can purchase, they can
Correct.
purchase a lot and build a single-family home.
Correct.
It's not an obligation.
No.
To put an affordable house.
There is not. There's no obligation. It's a municipal obligation, not individual.
Okay, all right, so if I just come back quick. So getting back to what you're saying, what Jay just brought up, 10th Avenue. Right now, that is a commercial building. It was an eyeglass place. That's one of the ones that were mentioned. It's commercial and it's an eyeglass place.
Right.
So the impact on the community is zero. It was parking, you got your eyes checked, you're up. Now, because the building is sold or because it was purchased, we're saying now we have an obligation on that particular lot, on these 5 that we listed, correct? That it's going to be, for the condos, townhouses, whatever it is, to help meet some of these numbers, is that correct?
The buyer, the owner of the property, is offering their property for development, which includes affordable housing.
Okay, but what was it zoned for?
Yes.
Is it zoned for multiple units and
Yeah.
all that?
The current zoning law permitted 4-story building in that
Wow.
spot.
Okay, so that leads me to zoning, if it's going back to zoning, we need to review our records thoroughly and go
But
through.
it doesn't matter, because if they are an intervener, the court decides what the zoning is.
Right, so I think say for example, say it was zoned for commercial, 1-story, no resident. It could still be intervening and saying, Judge, my property is zoned 1-story commercial, building retail. I want to put a 4-story residential and,
Because next to that is residential.
right, so you're making their case for them. Now, why it should be fine for us to put a residential property than a sort of residential property?
A residential, meaning if it's a lot that could be subdivided to 2 single-family homes, it would be cohesive to the neighborhood. A
Here-
4-story building in between that and, one house next door is not in the same, look of what you're trying to ask for.
But here's the things that I want to give you some sense that things are not all doom and gloom. Through this process, we are very involved in, for example, what the building might look like. We are spending a lot of time with our planner and the developer saying, we don't like that building, it's ugly, we want you to, so we're in the weeds, you have to accept the fact that the building's coming in some way, shape, or form. Our job is to make sure it's the smallest building possible, and we have to convince the court, and this is partly about economics, right? So they're gonna say we have to build a big building, so we can't afford 20% of our affordable housing. We can't afford to put 20% affordable housing unless you give us a big building. We're using financial consultants, planning consultants to say, your numbers are wrong, you can build a smaller building and still meet your affordable housing legislation. Or we're saying, hey, fair share, give us a break. Make this property have a little less affordable housing so we can bring the building down. We're doing all those things to try and get a project that is not what the developer wants, and certainly not what fair share
So
wants.
if you're negotiating that, are you also negotiating, they'll be replacing the water lines, the sewer line, everything that has to do with the infrastructure, what that's gonna have as a toll on the
So-
community? Is that
so-
part of the
so-
negotiation?
So we could negotiate, give us $1 million for sewers, right? That's one possibility. But they will show in their numbers, so if I need to give you $1 million for sewers, I need 10 more residential units to pay for $1 million and we need your sewers. That's not part of my project cost. So a lot of this is a math equation. So the more, they are trying to prove to the court, that this is all I can do, court, in order to make this project financially viable. And we're saying, you don't need to do all that to make it financially viable. And there's a big battle about the cost and give and take. But in your specific example, where we say, if we were to say to them, give us $1 million more for sewer, they might say fine, but they'll say, but I need 5 more units to pay for that. And we might say, well, we don't want 5 more units. So it's a very involved process to try and get us to the best result that people that you elected to do this for you want to get. But the projects are coming. We're just trying to make them be as least impactful as we can. And we're using a planner, we're using a financial consultant, we have lawyers that have been doing this for 30 years. And there's a fairly, we cancel negotiations at least twice with 2 or 3 lawyers. And so it's a very back and forth. And then we have a special master who's engaged. So he's sort of like the honest broker. His job is to say, look, guys, you're asking for too damn much. You're never gonna. And I do want to say that to the judges, in the judges' defense a little bit. She doesn't want to correct the character of Belmar. She has been pretty clear. Many of the judges are. We're not trying to upend. We're not going to. When someone comes and says they got to put a 10-story building in Belmar, she's never going to let that happen. So there is a level where she is also trying to get us to a place where we meet our obligation without destroying the character of the town. The character of the town is part of the conversation, 100%.
So
But
is
there's
it
this
up to-
obligation.
Is it up to you or the mayor and council to check with the surrounding communities to see how they've been handling it?
And we're aware of most of them. We've been involved in a lot of them.
And they're all doing the same thing?
They're all doing
All our
different.
neighboring
Everything's
communities?
different. Everybody's different. I can assure you, they're all different. Because they all have different problems, right? They have all different things. Some may not have a downtown. They may have only single-family community.
It just sounds horrible.
The question though, once we meet our affordable housing obligation, whether it's the 3rd round or the 4th round, then we're out of the affordable housing business, basically. In other words, then builders' remedy suits won't exist anymore, correct?
Right,
Once
you'll have
we
immunity
meet our-
for the 3rd round, you'll have immunity to take you
Right.
through 2025.
But I mean hypothetically,
Till
get into the
35.
4th round, and after a year
Until
or two.
2035.
Yeah,
After the 4th round.
Right, after the 4th round, we meet our obligation, we're done.
Until 2035.
Until 2035, and I'm not gonna worry.
But
about
again,
it.
there's a practicality of all this, right? There is only so much land here, and it's hard to buy 3 adjacent parcels and knock them down. So there's a practical reality that if you just don't have the land, there's just only so much you can do. For now, the focus is clearly on your downtown, where there's plenty of land, there's parking lots that can be built on top of, there's retail commercial that is less valuable than multifamily. That's gonna be, I think, primarily where the focus will be. So you just can't build. It becomes cost prohibitive to a developer to come and say, I'm gonna knock down this $3 million home and build it. So the economics, the lack of land, those things are still gonna be critical, because no one's asking you to check for this stuff. So you still are gonna hit a point where there's just nothing else to be done. But for the moment, though, your downtown has opportunities that property owners are prepared to take advantage of, that we're dealing with.
Thank you. John Rubel, 6th Avenue. I just want to make it clear that I understand the number of units that we're talking about now in phase 3, and then also the potential for an increase with the Jacobson's theorem or something to even go higher. So there's 145 units now
No.
affordable?
No, but that was the number before we did a vacant
That's
land.
what, it's gonna be less.
It's gonna be much less.
Yeah, much less.
Okay.
That's what Jacobson said, and we disagree. That's why we're doing vacant.
All right. And then could that go up for the fourth round?
We will know that in October, as I mentioned. The DCA is going to put out their numbers for the region, and will include the municipality of what they believe the number should be for the fourth round. The borough then will have its planner and everybody else look at the number, analyze it, and if we don't agree with it, we come up with our own number. And
So, worst case, 145 units affordable housing, multiply that by 5 to get the total number of units, right, that 80% would be non-affordable housing.
well, there is a cap on, you know.
Oh, if we go with that, we're gonna look brilliant when we're done. So we'll go with that,
Yeah,
because the mayor and council are gonna like brilliant, because that's not gonna do it.
okay. And the next, as a follow-up, you have a worst case in your mind. Do you have a best case in your mind?
Yeah, we can't share.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
We have a negotiating position. Sorry.
John Walsh, Senior, B Street. This all came about because we haven't been doing our fair share, right? So the can's been kicked down the road.
It would have been better if we addressed it earlier.
Okay. So basically, we're just paying for past sins, or past omissions.
You were gonna have to pay the piper.
No, listen, I'm just asking a question.
I don't want to disperse the target.
No.
But yes,
All right.
it would be better if we'd done it before.
Okay. Well, I know a little bit about this because, and this is going on everywhere. A friend of mine, they even did it in Colts Neck. My friend bought a condo there. I said, I didn't even know they had condos there. And it's at the end of Colts Neck, right before you go into Freehold. There's like a little road. There's a bunch of condos, and it's pretty nice too. But, I mean, this is what comes back to haunt you. And that other thing would be called the Mount Laurel case, when we used to, you pay the other guy off to take your,
The RCA's.
Your regional contribution agreements, RCs.
yes. So, I mean, we're gonna have to do it, so, I mean, we're just gonna have to make the best of it. And that's what your guys' job is,
It's our
right?
job.
Okay.
No, with great guidance from the mayor, BA, and council, who are with us every step of the way. They think we're doing things that they think that we're doing too much, or whether they're keeping us in line every step of the way. So it's a team effort.
All right, well, don't worry, I'm never gonna think you do too much. But I got a good piece of land for you too. Phillips Avenue and Main Street. It was an old shop. They could do it there.
We're not the developers. We don't want this to work for you.
The people might glow in the dark, but they'll have affordable housing. Thank you.
Any other questions? So, oh, sorry.
Regina Walsh. B Street, no, I'm not coming up, I'm not walking that far. Just wanted to know, are we gonna be punished for what was built? You know, and then didn't hold, the last few buildings that went up, they don't have affordable
I mean,
units in them.
It's
Are
a-
we being punished for that, will we be?
yeah, that's not the right word.
No, fined, or
No, none of those are
can
right.
we make
But,
them
look,
happen?
we have an obligation. We're trying to make the obligation as small as possible, and we're trying to do it. Whatever happened in the past doesn't matter.
Okay.
Like, we're just looking for it.
Okay, thank you.
That concludes our presentation. Thank you, everybody. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. I'm going to make a last call for questions because at the end of the meeting, obviously, we have a comment section, but the experts are here now. So if you ask a question at the end, you know, we'll try to answer, but I guess the best thing at that point would be to put it in writing, and we could forward it to our attorneys. So if there's anything you want to ask, you know, do it now, or else, you know, I might not have an immediate answer for you at the end of the meeting. Okay, thank you. Okay, why don't we just, petitions?
I have not received any petitions. Did you want to do the
Approval of
proclamations?
minutes?
Did you want to do the proclamations or? It's the reports, okay.
Let's do the approval of minutes first.
Could I have a motion to approve the minutes of the March 26th meeting?
I'll make the motion.
Second.
Councilwoman Kinney?
Yes.
Mayor Buckfusco?
Yes.
Councilman Rondonero?
Yes.
Okay, reports of council. Before we do that, we have two proclamations, one for Arbor Day and one for April is Child Abuse Prevention Month. And Councilwoman Kinney is going to do the Arbor Day, and Councilwoman Rondonero is going to do the Child Abuse Prevention Month.
Arbor Day 2024, whereas in 1872, J. Sterling Morton proposed to the Nebraska Board of Agriculture that a special day be set aside for the planting of trees, and whereas this holiday, called Arbor Day, was first observed with the planting of more than 1 million trees in Nebraska, and whereas Arbor Day is now observed throughout the nation and the world, and whereas trees can reduce the erosion of our precious topsoil by wind and water, cutting heating and cooling costs, moderate the temperature, clean the air, produce life-giving oxygen, and provide habitat for wildlife, and whereas trees are a renewable resource giving us paper, wood for our homes, fuel for our fires, and countless other wood products, and whereas trees in our town increase property values, enhance the economic vitality of business areas, and beautify our community, and whereas trees, wherever they are planted, are a source of joy and spiritual renewal, now therefore the Mayor and Council of the Borough of Belmar do hereby proclaim April 26, 2024 Arbor Day in the Borough of Belmar, and the Mayor and Council hereby urge all citizens to celebrate Arbor Day and support efforts to protect our trees and woodlands, and to plant trees to gladden the hearts and promote the well-being of this and future generations. Presented April 9th, 2024.
Okay, thank you very much. Councilwoman Rondonero.
April is Child Abuse Prevention Month. Whereas we all have a responsibility as individuals, neighbors, community members, and citizens of the Borough of Belmar to help create healthy, nurturing, and safe experiences. And whereas healthy and safe childhood help produce confident and successful adults. And whereas child abuse and neglect often occur when people find themselves in stressful situations without community resources and don't know how to cope. And whereas incidents of child abuse and neglect can be reduced by making sure all families have the support they need and deserve to raise their children in a healthy environment. And whereas court-appointed special advocates, CASA, is authorized by state statute and federal law to help the court and child welfare systems make best interest decisions on behalf of children removed from home because of abuse or neglect. And whereas CASA volunteer advocates in Belmar help to ensure that abused and neglected children are placed in foster care and other out-of-the-home placements are safe and receive the services they need to achieve well-being. Whereas CASA advocates reduce the number of moves between placements, help shorten the overall time a child remains in placement, and serve as a consistent person in the child's life until that child achieves permanency in a safe home with a loving family. Now, therefore, the Mayor and Council of the Borough of Belmar do hereby proclaim April 2024 as Child Abuse Prevention Month and urge all citizens to support the CASA network across New Jersey as it strengthens families and helps children learn, grow, and thrive.
Okay, thank you very much. Let's move on to reports of council. Let's start with Councilwoman Kinney.
Yes, thank you. Okay, so I'm gonna hit this too. Okay, just real quick, I wanted to thank the borough for putting on the health fair. We had a health fair this past Sunday, which was wonderful. It was the first one, It was very well organized. There are a lot of health organizations there. I was able to participate as Dr. Jody from King Chiropractic. So it was just great. It was good to see people from the community come out, so thank you. Thank you so much for that. The recreation signups are happening now for summer tennis. Summer tennis camp is June 24th to the 28th. Kids running club signups, summer basketball signups, and junior bars all happening now. Shade Tree Commission, we already talked about it, but Arbor Day is the last Friday of the month, the 26th, and we will be celebrating by planting trees with the fourth graders from both Belmar Elementary School and St. Rose Grammar School. And around the schools, Belmar Elementary, May 9th, they wanted to early announce their spring band and chorus concert, and it's also combined with an art show, so come out for that. And they're busy with spring sports and class field trips. St. Rose Schools, this weekend, the 13th, is their biannual clothing drive. It's in the parking lot by the red brick building behind the church from 8 to 10 a.m. So bring all your old clothes, sheets, towels, whatever you need to get rid of, bring it all to the clothing drive in the Spring Lake parking lot. And Runway for Roses, they are doing a fashion show this Sunday, the 14th. It's at 1 p.m. It's a fashion show, and all the fashions are from local businesses around the area, local stores around the area. 1 p.m., $25 to get in online, or $30 at the door. And then lastly, I just did, Councilwoman Donovan and I wanted to reiterate that there is a big Verizon update town hall. Please spread the word. It's going to be on social media as well. Taylor Pavilion next Thursday, the 18th at 7 p.m. There are going to be other town elected officials at this event. Our county commissioners are county commissioners are going to be there. Director County Commissioner Tom Arnoon. There's going to be bigwig attorneys speaking at this, giving us the latest updates on the lawsuits and what's happening with the county, the borough, the interveners. It will be, like I said, on social media. Please share it. And share it if you have neighbors that don't have social media on computers. Please come out to the town hall. Okay? Thank you. That's it.
Councilwoman Rondinero.
Great, thank you, Nick. I just had a few notes from Councilwoman Donovan as well. The Belmar Environmental Commission will meet on Thursday, 6:30 at the library. This meeting's open to the public, and we will have volunteers there. Claire and Sharon Hayner to collect plastic film, things like plastic bags, the wrap that your bread comes in, from any residents who'd like to stop by to recycle their home collection. Also, the Silver Lake team meets this upcoming Monday. We'll have a call with the Army Corps of Engineers next Thursday to discuss the lake. As a reminder, the Belmar Environmental Commission is sponsoring a community cleanup of Silver Lake Saturday, April 27th from 11 to 1. For more information, check on our Facebook page, and while you're there, go and follow our page. For the Belmar Housing Authority, they had their meeting last Monday. Director DeSantis let me know Thursday that the state will inspect the main elevator, so it should be back in service immediately on Thursday if it passes. As far as the Belmar Public Library, they have their Writer's Block Spring Book Fair coming up this Saturday from 10 to 2, featuring 30 local Jersey Shore region authors. It's a great opportunity to meet local authors and get your book signed. There's so much going on at the library. Please go to the library website and find out more. Also, I just wanted to say, as the warmer weather approaches, I'm having more residents reach out to me about parking issues. Neighbors, visitors who might not be as considerate as making sure that you get into those spaces as tight as you can, so everyone who lives in buildings that don't have driveways can park somewhat near their homes. It is a struggle for all Belmar residents who don't have a driveway or signed off-street, and it's something that I'd still like to see if in the future, especially when we're talking about paid parking, whether we can have some resident parking where it's permitted just for residents. Thanks.
Thank you. I had two things to say, but of course, Councilwoman Kinney did the update on the mayor's wellness thing, and Councilwoman Rondinero reported on the BEC things, so I only have two little things to report on. But I would like to thank the vendors, including Dr. Kinney, for coming to the health fair on Sunday. It was very well attended, and I think it was a great event. The other thing you will notice that we have new microphones up here, so, you know, it takes a little getting used to, because we want to keep going here, and then it gets louder. So I think by the end of the meeting, we'll have that all down pat. And you may notice if you go around Silver Lake, they're beginning the installation of new garbage cans around the lake, and I know a few residents are very excited about that. So we just now have to get people to put the garbage in the garbage cans. So that will be the next hurdle that we have to cross. Other than that, I don't believe I have anything else to report on, so why don't we move on to the public session for the consent agenda resolutions.
If anyone from the public would like to speak about a resolution listed on the agenda, please step forward, state your name and address. Okay, seeing none, can I have a motion to close the public session?
Motion.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Can I have a motion to approve the resolutions as listed